What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Deadpool and Wolverine, the 34th entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and sequel to the first two Fox Deadpool movies. So, the overall plot of this movie is as follows. Deadpool has to go up against the Time Variance Authority because they are planning to destroy the universe that he is currently inhabiting. So, as a way to even the odds, he goes to recruit Wolverine. However, the Wolverine he recruits is a Wolverine from a different universe who does not want to be involved in any of these shenanigans. So now the entire film is Deadpool and Wolverine trying to coexist as a team as they take on a greater threat. So yeah, that is the overall gist of Deadpool and Wolverine. Let's talk about it. All right, so I'm just going to say this when it pertains to Deadpool and Wolverine. From a story standpoint, this movie is all over the place. It does raise a lot of questions in terms of the MCU continuity and introduces things that recontextualizes the MCU and makes you scratch your head as to, okay, what are you trying to do over here? But if you take all that crap out of the equation and you just focus on Deadpool and Wolverine for what it is, to me, this movie is just like Spider-Man No Way Home, in which it's a love letter to a bygone era of superhero movies. This movie is a love letter to the Fox era of superhero movies, to the X-Men franchise. Like, to me, this movie serves as a nice epilogue to the X-Men franchise, to the Fox era of superhero movies, and it pretty much shows that era, a certain amount of respect and pokes fun at it a little bit. But it also gives characters some closure and gives them some good moments and some good bits. And of course you have a villain who I don't think is going to go down as one of the greatest villains of the MCU, but was definitely pretty interesting, if not had a lot of missed opportunity to it. So if you put all those things into the equation, then yeah, to me, Deadpool and Wolverine, it's not a perfect movie. It's a movie that could have been maybe structured a little bit better than what it was, but it is an overall fun movie, and I wouldn't call it the best Deadpool movie. I think 1 and 2 are better than this one, but it definitely deserves its place in the echelon of one of the better MCU movies to come out post 2019. And when you look at the slate of TV and movies that came out post 2019, a lot of it is just bad to mid to really, really good. And to me, Deadpool falls into the really good category. I don't care if this movie's full of fan service. I don't care if this movie does not meet your expectations. When I go to watch a comic book movie, I want to be entertained. I want to be entertained, and I don't want a movie to preach at me and force politics into it. I just want a movie that's entertaining me. And this movie does exactly that. This movie fits perfectly in the Fox universe and more or less takes place right after the events of Deadpool 2, in which Deadpool, after using Cable's time machine, more or less, does some fixing. One of the major things is that he resurrects his dead girlfriend, and he does a whole lot of shenanigans. So yeah, more or less, Deadpool has to pay for those consequences. Hence, why the TVA is on his tail. I should also mention that the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, was first introduced in the first season of the Loki show. If you've been keeping track of the Marvel TV shows, that's where that's where the TVA makes their debut. When it comes to this movie, how Deadpool and Wolverine is able to utilize the MCU was actually pretty creative to me. This is not an MCU movie. Deadpool and Wolverine is not an MCU movie. It's a Fox movie with the MCU around it. And that pretty much gives this movie some freedom to do some cool things and not be confined to a sandbox, if you will. It's playing in its own sandbox with its own rules, but it has the MCU tools that it can work with. And that to me is a big positive for this movie because it's not confined by anything, so it can poke fun at stuff. But if you really wanted to, it can fit into the MCU just from a certain point of view. Again, we do get characters who pop up from the MCU in this movie. Not just the TVA, but you get a cameo by Jon Favreau, who plays Happy Hogan. And Not gonna lie, I like the scene of Deadpool and Happy Hogan having a conversation at Stark Towers. I thought that Ryan Reynolds and Jon Favreau had very good comedic chemistry in that scene. I thought it was actually really, really funny. And just seeing Happy Hogan react to Deadpool is something that I'm always gonna like. And of course, Deadpool's able to get to this universe because he had Table's time machine. But now, and it's actually pretty interesting that scene takes place in the year 2018, like literally moments after Deadpool 2. So the movie does a time jump to the more present day, where Deadpool's in his own universe, and he's celebrating his birthday. He's no longer a mercenary. He's hanging out with Peter, played by Rob Delaney. I like Peter from Deadpool 2. I like Peter in this movie. I wish Ryan Reynolds and Rob Delaney had more screen time together, because I think their chemistry is really understated and very underrated. And how can you hate the character of Peter? He's very likable. The character of Peter is that guy who is strange and kooky, but he's also a loyal friend, and he's somebody who's always going to stand by his friend. So you can't really hate a character like Peter, aka Sugar Bear. So I got no hate on that. I like it. I would like to see more scenes with Peter and Deadpool, but I do like how Peter comes back at the end of the movie, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, I would have had more scenes of Wade and Peter just talking and just bantering back and forth with each other, because you could have gotten some good comedic mileage out of that. But basically, this whole scene is to set up the fact that, Wade is, he's trying to distance himself from superheroing and wants to have a regular life. Trying to get back with Vanessa, who for some reason in this movie, they decided to go the route of her and Wade not being together. I don't really care for that, to be honest with you. I mean, Wade did this whole thing in Deadpool 2 with the time machine, and the whole thing of, trying to let Vanessa go and stuff like that. And then he takes a time machine just to bring her back. So Wade brings back his girlfriend just for his girlfriend to leave him eventually. I don't know. It kind of seems counterproductive when you watch. It kind of seems counterproductive. And to me, kind of feels like forced drama. I mean, it's fun to see Vanessa. It's fun to see Marina Baccarin back as Vanessa again. One of the best aspects of the first two Deadpool movies was the relationship between Wade and Vanessa. But she's not in the movie that often. And again, I don't like the whole thing of her and Wade not being together. It didn't really mean nothing to me, to be honest with you. Also, during this scene, we get the return of Leslie Uggams as Blind Al. Her and Wade are still hilarious together with their drug innuendo jokes. And I love the whole joke of that Kevin Feige has given Deadpool permission to use just about everything, but he can't do cocaine jokes. And just them going off different ways to get around it by saying, do you want to build a snowman? White Girl Interrupted and crazy stuff like that. That shit's hilarious. We also get the return of Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Yukio. They have a cameo where they just stand around and do nothing. Colossus, the same thing. Fun to see him, but he does nothing. He plays no role in the story, as in the first two movies where he did something. In this one, he's completely absent, which I wasn't a fan of, because you could have gotten some good stuff out of Colossus. But this movie didn't go there. We got the return of Dolphinder, the taxi driver. Dolphinder is funny in the first two movies, and he has maybe a couple lines in this, and you forget about him. And very strangely, they brought back Louis Tran, Shatterstar from Deadpool 2. Okay, Shatterstar is back and does nothing. I would prefer Terry Crews' Bedlam, but that's just me. Or why not bring back the Vanisher? It would be funny as fuck to see Brad Pitt. Or better yet, take Shatterstar out. Where the fuck is Cable? That's what I want to know. Where is Cable in this movie? He's nowhere to be found. He's referenced, but where is he? They don't even explain what happened to him. But ultimately, this whole opening scene is meant to set up the TVA taking Wade from his timeline and having him meet Mr. Paradox, played by Matthew McFadden, where Paradox more or less tells Wade that his universe is in danger of being eradicated because the anchor point of his universe is no longer around. So this movie establishes that the Deadpool films takes place in the same continuity as Logan. And Logan is the anchor point of this universe. How Deadpool and Logan fit in the same timeline, I don't know. It's very odd that Deadpool is nowhere to be found in Logan. But that, again, that just raises too many questions, so you just have to deal with it. But more or less, the anchor point is dead, and now Wade's universe is in danger of being completely wiped away from existence. Speaking of which, I like Matthew McFadden as Mr. Paradox. I thought he brought genuine charisma to the role, and he actually has a lot of funny scenes. And his mannerisms are so over the top and so theatrical that you can't help but get some chuckles out of him. So, like, he's not an imposing villain. He's a swarmy villain but he's entertaining. But I'll give it that. He's entertaining. And like in Loki, I do like the overall look of the TVA. It has a very 1970s/60s retro style feel to it. So that's pretty cool. And I do like the scene where Wade is looking at the TV screens and he sees the MCU before him. And of course, he has admiration for Cap. And we get this scene where Thor and we get a scene between Thor and Deadpool, which is a recreation of the scene from Thor: The Dark World where Loki is killed and Thor is crying. And this movie sets up the gag of why was Thor crying, which is an answer we never get. And knowing the MCU nowadays, if they do give us an explanation for that, it's probably going to be very underwhelming. So I think it's best to leave something like that up to fan speculation, because I don't trust the MCU to give a satisfying payoff for it. But to make a long story short, the whole purpose of Wade meeting the TVA is that Paradox is offering Wade a chance to join the sacred timeline, which is Earth 616 MCU proper. But for that to happen, Wade's timeline is going to be erased from existence. But since it happens at a slow rate once an anchor point is dead, Paradox has this thing called a time ripper, which is going to accelerate the process. As Wade said, it's a MacGuffin. That's what the time ripper is. The time ripper is just a MacGuffin. So Wade, not liking this, decides to fight back against the TVA, and he does this by recruiting Logan, or a version of Wolverine. And this leads to a... All right, so before I talk about this stuff, I gotta mention the opening credits and the opening scene, which is Wade going to the end of Logan and burying up the adamantium skeleton of Wolverine. Now, this can be looked at in two ways. This can be looked at as the movie taking a giant dump all over the ending of Logan and how nuanced that was, or it's the movie paying a sick tribute to that movie, where even in death, Wolverine can still be useful. And Wade uses the adamantium skeleton to his advantage. And this entire opening sequence when Wade kills the TVA at Logan's gravesite is absolutely hilarious and is done to NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye. And yeah, it takes a lot of inspiration from Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of using creative title sequences. And I'm not going to lie, the second this scene played, everyone in my theater was laughing and cheering, and that's when you knew that this movie was going to be a lot of fun, and that's when you knew what tone and direction this movie was going to go in. I wasn't really offended by this movie having Deadpool dig up the adamantium skeleton. I looked at it as, even in death, you can still Wolverine can still be very, very useful to you. And Deadpool uses his skeleton to good use by dispatching all of the TVA. It's gruesome. It's hilarious. The intercutting of Deadpool doing the bye-bye dance while in between fighting is absolutely hysterical. Yeah. The opening credits is absolutely fun. And everything we see after the opening credits more or less leads directly to that scene. So now that I got that part out of the way, now we can go to the other part of the story, in which Deadpool, who now has a tempad where he can travel through different universes, goes to find Logan. And this is where we get the first real fan servicing moments of this movie, are seeing the different variations of Logan. We get to see comic book accurate Logan. We get to see old man Logan. We get to see Logan, the one that's crucified on the giant X in the middle of nowhere. We get to see Apocalypse Logan with the puffy haircut and the black leather. We get to see the classic John Byrne brown and yellow Wolverine, where he fights the Hulk. And yes, the Hulk does have a small little cameo in this movie before he and Logan clash. So that was actually really cool. But we also get Patch. Can't forget Patch. You also get Patch, which was an alter ego of Logan as well. But the best of all these cameos, and the one that was actually like you didn't see coming, they actually casted Henry Cavill as a Logan variant, and he's nicknamed the Calverine, and it's a fun cameo. It was great. It was fun seeing Henry Cavill make his cameo as Logan. I know a lot of fans want to see him as Logan. I personally can't see him in the role. To me, Henry Cavill can be a better Cyclops. That's just me personally. But I'd also be lying if I said that I didn't love seeing Cavill and the claw and him like acting as Logan and having the claws and stuff like that and just busting Deadpool down. It was a fun cameo, and I do like the shots that Deadpool took at DC. That was fun too. But eventually, Deadpool does get to the variant of Wolverine that we're going to be following throughout the portion of this film. And this is a Wolverine who is just a recluse, a drunk, somebody who you're quick to find at a bar. This is a Wolverine who is often described as the worst of all because he let his entire universe down and he let the X-Men die. And as the movie progresses, there's an explanation as to why, as to how all this happened. More or less, the X-Men always wanted Wolverine to be part of the team. Wolverine was always hesitant about it. So one day, he decided to just, up and leave the mansion, go to a bar, have a couple of drinks or whatever. However, the humans invaded the X-Mansion and they wiped out the entire X-Men. And this Wolverine felt all that guilt because if he hadn't have left the mansion, then his friends would still be alive in his mind. Hence why he's an alcoholic and does not want to be bothered with anything anymore. And the reason why, and I like how the movie gives an explanation to Wolverine wearing the suit that he wears. He wears that suit as a reminder of what he lost and what he used to be. And I like how through Deadpool he's able to rediscover that one more time. Like, the Wolverine in this movie has a decent character arc. Like, I like it a lot. It's actually really well done. And I think Hugh Jackman gives his best performance this time, gives another excellent performance as Wolverine. Hugh Jackman will always go down as the Wolverine. That's why they've never been able to recast Wolverine, because you can't. Hugh Jackman is so embedded within this role that, as the movie says at the end, he's going to be playing it till he's 90. Like, there's really no one that can play the role of Wolverine that can give it that same gravitas or intensity that Hugh Jackman can bring. And in this movie, I think Wolverine has some of his best moments, in my opinion. And not only that, this version of Wolverine felt more comic book accurate. Like, there are more than one scenes where Wolverine is saying his iconic, bub line to a lot of these characters. If you watch the original Fox movies, Logan seldomly said that word, that it felt like a blink and you miss it sometimes. But in this movie, he's saying bub like it's nothing. If you're familiar with the X-Men cartoon and the comic books, bub was what Logan would just say to people. That was like his thing. It's small things like that make this version of Wolverine to me feel like it was more catered to fans of the character and fans of the source material. And not only that, he and Deadpool have a shit ton of awesome fights. Like when these characters first end up in the Void after Paradox sends them there, they have a fun fight scene to AC/DC's Hell's Bells before they come across Pyro and Toad and Sabretooth. All right, this is where my thoughts are going to go a little bit into the negative zone, because this entire sequence, I both loved it at first, and then I just did not like it as it progressed, because it is like, how could you make these stupid mistakes? So, the fight with Wolverine and Deadpool by the broken Fox logo in the Void, fun as fuck. When Pyro comes in, it was fun to see Pyro. They actually got Aaron Stanford to return as Pyro, and he looks more comic book accurate. That was cool. You got to see Tyler Mane finally come back as Sabretooth after 24 years. That was cool too. The movie teased that we were going to get Wolverine versus Sabretooth. Just for Wolverine to decapitate him in 5 seconds, and the whole thing just becomes, what the fuck, man? You had one job. You could have at least given Wolverine and Sabretooth 3 to 5 minutes and have them have an intense fight and still do the whole thing of Wolverine killing him. Instead, the movie played it off as like a throwaway, as throwaway. It's like, are you for real with this right now? I did not like that. I thought that sucked. And the fact that Toad lasted longer than Sabretooth, that's a joke in and to itself. Number one, when compared to Sabretooth, who cares about Toad? Like, seriously, who cares about Toad? In the comic books, he's really Magneto's bitch in the Brotherhood of Shadows. Sabretooth has a much longer history with Wolverine. Not only does Sabretooth have a longer history with Wolverine, these two legitimately do not like each other. They hate each other. Sabretooth makes it a point to constantly torture Wolverine whenever Wolverine's birthday comes along just because he wants to fuck with him. That's fucking troll shit right there. Sabretooth and Wolverine, probably the best rivalry in comic books, and in the movies, have always been underutilized. Even X-Men Origins didn't do it justice. And this movie just felt like a really bad throwaway gag, and I hated it so much. Did not like it at all. However, it is saved by the appearance of Chris Evans as Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four. This whole thing was absolutely hilarious. Like, the way they made Deadpool think that Captain America was going to help him and Wolverine, just for it to be revealed as Johnny Storm when he said flame on instead of Avengers Assemble, that will never not be awesome to me. I find it kind of odd that Johnny Storm, somebody who's made of fire, would attack Pyro, someone who can control fire, but that's just me. That is really just me. And the fact that Johnny Storm knows that Pyro can control fire, because as we learn later as the film progresses, Johnny Storm is part of his own little unit who are trying to go after Cassandra Nova. And you would think he would have some base knowledge of what Pyro can do. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It is kind of stupid, but it does lead to a very entertaining scene where where Wolverine, Deadpool, and Johnny Storm are having a conversation while they're being driven to the lair of Cassandra Nova. Now, by the way, I like how we get to see the Fantastic Car in this movie. That was pretty cool, and I do like the overall setting of the Void. As Deadpool said, it has a very Mad Max type of wasteland feel to it. So no complaints for me, because I love the Mad Max franchise. And I do like the whole idea of Cassandra Nova using a dead corpse of Ant-Man as her lair. And I do like the joke where Deadpool says that Paul Rudd finally ages, because the whole running gag is that Paul Rudd has looked the same for like the last 30 years. The man doesn't age. So seeing him into nothing but reduced to a skeleton, I like that joke. And I also like Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova, the twin sister of Professor X. So I both like this character and both don't care for the direction that they went with this character in a lot of aspects. So, number one, I like that we get a different villain from X-Men lore for a change, and it's not the same old ones. Cassandra Nova, the twin sister of Professor X, who can more or less invade your mind by literally putting her fingers inside of you, and she can read your thoughts. It's a more twisted version of Professor X's power. That's cool. You could have gotten some. You can get some decent mileage out of that, and you do towards the end of the movie, where she invades Logan's mind and tries to break him. It's paid off nicely. What I don't like about Cassandra Nova is that she doesn't really have much of a villain plan when you look at it. More or less, I think towards the end of the movie, she decides to want to use the Time Ripper to rip apart the multiverse, but that's about it. Like, her villain plan is non-existent, to tell you the truth. She ends up wanting to do what Mr. Paradox wants to do, but only on a much larger scale. And that's basically it. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You either like it or you deal with it. I don't like it, but okay, you need something for a grandiose ending. But so you get what you get. As an overall performance, I thought Emma Corrin brought a lot of charisma to the role. I thought she was very entertaining. If this movie had a big missed opportunity, where the hell is Charles Xavier? This movie name drops Charles Xavier, and they do preserve his name, and they do make him feel like the man that he is, in which, and this is said, and this is prevalent, and this is done when Wolverine tells Cassandra Nova that the real Charles Xavier loved everyone, and if he found out, and if the Charles knew whatever happened to his sister, he would have ripped the universe apart trying to find her. Like, even though Charles makes no appearance in this movie, he's still presented as the hero and the good man that he really is. Now, this movie's missed opportunity is not doing a Charles Xavier cameo, which I do not appreciate. And when Cassandra Nova invades the mind of Wolverine, this would have been the perfect opportunity to have a Charles Xavier cameo. So if you look at Cassandra Nova and the way her character is designed, she's a mere splitting image of the James McAvoy version of the character. There's no reason why McAvoy couldn't have made an appearance as Charles Xavier in this movie, and we could have got a scene of the two siblings talking with each other and having a conversation with each other. I think it could have been a nice little homage to the scene in Days of Futures Past where old Charles is talking to young Charles. That could have been a really cool and interesting scene, but it never happened because it's a missed opportunity. Where's Charles Xavier? He's like nowhere to be found. I didn't like that at all. I hated it. Thought it was dumb. Where's Charles? Where's Chuck? Where's Chucky? Other things I don't really care for. You got Azrael from First Class. He does nothing. You got a fucking horrible version of Juggernaut in this movie. He does nothing and he sucks. I think, and we got the Vinnie Jones version, though it's not played by Vinnie Jones. This version of Juggernaut does there. Like, he's literally just there. You have the Russian from the Punisher movie. He's not Kevin Nash, and he looks like some little dude. Whatever. Like, the villains that Cassandra Nova has assembled for herself, it's pretty much a who's who of I don't care, with the exceptions of maybe Pyro, and that is it, just Pyro. It should have been Pyro and Sabretooth, to be honest with you, not Toad, and not a poor man's version of the Russian, and Azazel, who's not even played by Jason Fleming either. Like, not to mention he has no lines, he doesn't do anything. But after Deadpool and Wolverine kind of escape the clutches of Cassandra Nova, they're pretty much wandering the void by this point. And this is where they come across Nicepool, who has a dog by the name of Dogpool or Mary Poppins. I like the character of Nicepool. I like that Ryan Reynolds is basically playing an over. I like the fact that through Nicepool, Ryan Reynolds is playing an over-exaggerated version of himself, and the fact that Nicepool has no power and he has these two golden-plated eagles, golden gun eagles that Deadpool Prime spots and wants. That's fun. I thought that I like the scenes with Nicepool, and I like how this movie didn't overexpose his character that much. But evidently, this whole thing leads to Nicepool giving Logan and Deadpool a vehicle, so that way they can. Okay. So before I go any further with this, I just want to add on to a little bit more of Cassandra Nova's character. She is basically been put in charge of the Void by the TVA, and she kills Johnny after Deadpool creates this whole over-the-top explanation that Johnny had trash-talked her, and I like how this is paid off at the end of the movie in a mid-credits and a post-credit. I'll get to that a little bit later, but seeing Johnny like try and talk his way out of not getting killed is absolutely hilarious, and Cassandra Nova ripping his skin off is just gruesome but fun at the same time, and Deadpool and Wolverine just narrowly escape Cassandra's lair because she pretty much leads them to be die by Alioth. Now, Alioth is this being that lives in the void that devours everything, and this was introduced in the first season of Loki. As Deadpool would say, Loki season 1, episode 5. And once Deadpool and Wolverine escape the lair, that's where they meet Nicepool, and Nicepool gives them a car, and they use this vehicle to try and find resistance fighters to help them take on Cassandra Nova. Now, it is during this drive where Deadpool inadvertently tells Wolverine. So Deadpool was able to get this Wolverine to join his side with the idea of having the TVA fix his timeline and resurrecting his dead friends. But, excuse me, but Deadpool was just lying through his ass and just said that to get into and just said that just to break down Wolverine's guard. And we get this great scene where Wolverine totally and utterly buries Deadpool verbally in this vehicle. I mean, Hugh Jackman's performance in this movie, in this scene, is absolutely great. It's both intense, sad, and funny all at the same time. And then it leads to a brutal fight that is done to the Olivia Newton-John song from Grease. And after the scene is over, they are found by the Resistance. And this is where we get the other cameo dump. So, this series of cameos is a who's who. We have the return of Jennifer Gardner as Elektra from the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie and her really bad spin-off movie. It's cool to see Jennifer Garner come back to get some closure as a character. Elektra was one of the first female heroes that Marvel produced in a solo film. It just didn't work because the movie's not that good, but Jennifer Garner was always good as the character of Elektra, despite the very weak material she had to work with. We have the return of Daphne Keane as X-23 from Logan, a more grown-up version of Laura / X-23. And I do like the scene of her and Logan talking by a campfire. And this is where the scene where Logan tells his backstory to Laura, and and it's actually a really, really nice scene between these two. We have the long-awaited portrayal of Gambit by Channing Tatum himself, a performance that people have been making jokes about ever since it first came on. The main criticism is the accent that Channing Tatum uses, the Cajun accent, and many people questioning the authenticity and how he uses the dialect. Listen, I'm just going to say this. I look at it as Channing Tatum just being very excited to finally get a chance to play a character that he clearly has been wanting to do for like the last decade, and now he's finally having a chance to do it. So if the performance comes across as clunky in some areas, I just view it as him being overly excited to finally do something like this. And he wasn't bad. I think the over-exaggeration of the hatred for it is just that, an over-exaggeration. He's not bad. I like the look. It's very comic book accurate with the trench coat and the body armor, the staff and the cards. And Channing Tatum, bless his heart, does the best job he could trying to do a Cajun accent. And I do like how Gambit and Wolverine have some dialogue exchanges, especially when Gambit catches Wolverine drinking his liquor. But the cameo of cameos in this whole scene has got to be the return of Wesley Snipes as Blade. This rocks hard. This kicks ass. This Wesley Snipes' performance from the second he's on screen till his final moment proves that he has a lot more juice left as the character of Blade. And I don't want to see Mahershala Ali as Blade. I like Ali as an actor, but I'm sorry, you're never going to be Blade. You don't got that charisma. You don't got the intensity that Wesley Snipes brings to the role. You don't got that quiet, cool, stern coolness that Wesley Snipes has. And yeah, seeing Wesley Snipes as Blade is great. Him having that one line of there's always going to be one Blade, which is not entirely true because there was another Blade, the TV show, and he was played by Sticky Fingers from the rap group Onyx. So that line is kind of a lie, but I'm just gonna leave that there. But anyway, when Deadpool pretty much forms his own version of the Avengers, and this version is basically to give these characters their closure. Like, Elektra is gonna get her closure. Blade is gonna get his closure. The character of Gambit. I like how the movie does a lot of meta jokes when it comes to Gambit, where he's constantly saying, "Well, I never had a chance to be a hero. I never had a chance to do this. I never had a chance to do that." Like they're poking fun at the fact that Gambit never had a chance to have any adventures, and this is his first adventure, and it was done really well. And the whole fight scene with Deadpool's little mini Avengers going up against Cassandra Nova's little team, it was fun. It was entertaining, and I liked it. It was good. they all had a chance. They all had a chance to showcase themselves, and the whole purpose of this thing is to get Juggernaut's helmet so that way they could put it on Cassandra Nova to reduce her powers. Initially, the idea was to get Magneto's helmet, but surprise, surprise, Magneto's dead, but Toad is not dead. So Sabretooth and Magneto are dead, but we still got Toad for the win. Anyway, the big fight scene ensues at Cassandra Nova's lair, with X-23 more or less getting the kill shot on Juggernaut and delivering the helmet. This is what hampers Cassandra's power, and this is where Deadpool and Wolverine are able to get out of the void and go into Deadpool's universe. And and of course, Cassandra also learns from this moment that Pyro was working against her with Mr. Paradox. And I do like the scene where Cassandra Nova's gonna mind fuck Pyro, but Pyro's like, I'll tell you, just don't go in my head. Like, all you gotta do is ask. Like, it's a nice scene. And Pyro's taken out, and basically that's the end of Pyro and his little involvement in this movie. Fun to see him, but it is what it is. But once Deadpool and Wolverine go back to the to Deadpool's universe, this is where we get pretty much the biggest set piece of this entire movie, in which Deadpool and Wolverine take on the Deadpool core that Nicepool had mentioned earlier on in the movie. And this whole thing is done to Madonna's Like a Prayer, and I do not care. This whole fight between Deadpool and Wolverine, with Wolverine putting on the iconic mask as more or less his battle cry. This thing is bloody. It's great. It's fun. Seeing the many different versions of Deadpool is great. You get cameos by Ryan Reynolds' kids as Kidpool and Babypool. You also get Blake Lively, a vocal cameo as Ladypool. And you also get a vocal cameo of Matthew McConaughey as Cowboy Pool. And you get Headpool, voiced by Nathan Fillion. This scene is fan servicey as fuck. You either like it or you hate it. Me, I'm entertained by it. It was vicious. It was bloody. It was violent. Seeing these many Deadpools get dispatched violently by DP and Wolvie was so much fun to see. And it leads to the final moments where Deadpool and Wolverine more or less have to work together to destroy the Time Ripper and stop Cassandra Nova from ripping the multiverse apart. And they said that there's a good chance that these two are not going to make it out alive. But as we find out, they do make it out alive. But I do like how Wolverine initially was going to do it alone. Pretty much he wants to get closure for himself, and he wants Wade to not be involved in this. He wants Wade to be the hero. But Wade's like, no. But Wade's like, no. I'm going to do this. But eventually, it leads to both Deadpool and Wolverine doing it together. And eventually, they destroy the Time Ripper. Cassandra Nova is defeated. Mr. Paradox gets apprehended by the TVA, in which one of the characters from Loki makes an appearance. I forgot her name because she's useless in that show, to be honest with you. I think her name is B-15. I don't know, nor do I care. The movie plays the movie. The movie makes a joke about her having a crush on Peter, as they share like a little scene together, because Peter pops up at the end. And then the movie ends with Laura now in Deadpool's universe and reunited with Logan. And movie also sets up the whole thing of Deadpool and Vanessa getting back together. And that's basically it. The movie ends after that. And then you get the post-credit scene where we actually see that Deadpool was telling the truth and that Johnny Storm legit ripped into Cassandra Nova. And the amount of obscenities that Chris Evans says in this movie, I think you could tell by his facial expression and the way he was delivering that he was having a good time delivering saying this shit. But it was the fact that he was saying this as Johnny Storm that's just the extra icing on the cake. So yeah, that was a lot to unpack when it comes to Deadpool and Wolverine. Overall, as a movie, I still very much enjoy this thing. I like it. It's one of the better MCU movies to come out. I like the end credits and how it pays beautiful tribute to the Fox universe, to Green Day's "Time of Your Life." that was a nice little touch. I like Sean Levy's directing. I thought he did a fantastic job directing this movie. The action sequences are well done and well choreographed. The in-sync bye 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 opening sequences, like I said before, I'll have a lot of fun. The performances are all energetic. They're all great all across the board. Even though I don't think Cassandra Nova's a great villain, you can clearly tell that Emma Corrin's enjoying herself. Matthew McFadden as Paradox brings like a brings a flamboyant charisma to the role. And like I said, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, they carry this movie, and they were fantastic in it. Now, yeah, this movie does raise a lot of questions in terms of its continuity and and the ideas that it presents that pretty much recontextualizes the MCU in a very questionable state. How they're going to explain this is beyond me. I don't know. But if you watch this movie in isolation as a sequel to the first two Deadpool movies, I think it does a good job of tying everything together from the Fox era, and sets up Deadpool to be integrated proper into the MCU eventually. So that's just my take on that. So yeah, with all that being said, Deadpool and Wolverine to me is a solid 8 out of 10. It's not as good as the first two movies, but it's still a hell of a lot of fun. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.